Hello, this is Dr. George Walters-Sleyon. I want to have a little conversation with you. You know, Black History Month, quote unquote, has ended. Did on Saturday, sort of. However, the Black experience continues. The Black experience continues in the West, in the Western world. What is the Black experience? The Black experience has a lot to do with the narratives associated with the transatlantic slave trade and its legacies. The transatlantic slave trade and its mutation or development into what is called penal slavery in the modern era. Penal slavery into the modern or postmodern era in the United States and the United Kingdom, in Western Europe as well. I have produced these two volumes called The Rush for Black Diamonds. They look absolutely gorgeous. These are the hardbacks and they are treasured to be owned. But in these books, in these two volumes, I argue that the transatlantic slave trade did not end. The transatlantic slave trade only mutated into chattel slavery, into colonialism, into neo-colonialism, into penal slavery post-1970s in the United States and the United Kingdom. In the United States and the United Kingdom. And as a result, what you have, you've got the legacies of those who justified its indeterminate perpetuation. The legacy of racial discrimination, the legacy of racial identity for Black people, the legacies of criminalization, Black criminalization. And may I take a moment to let you know that every Black person in the West is Black. You may come from Nigeria, you may come from Angola, you may come from Jamaica, you may come from Trinidad, you may come from Grenada, you may come from Haiti, you may come from Ghana, you may come from Togo. When you come to the West, you are Black. Have that at the back of your mind. And this is particularly obvious in the criminal justice system. So you may as well understand what is called the Black experience and to begin to think about it. The Black experience. Because there are some of us, Black people from Nigeria or other places, who make the argument, I am not Black. It's the African Americans who are Black. Unfortunately, you've got it wrong. You are Black in the West. Your Nigerian or Ghanaian or Jamaican nationality does not erase the racial consciousness, the historic racial consciousness of being Black in the West. Know that. Thus, the Black experience becomes your experience with respect to race, racialization, and racial criminalization of people of African descent. So, in these two volumes, you look at the justification and the legacies and how philosophy built and has sustained what is called the legacies of the transatlantic slave and justified the transatlantic slave trade. You've got John Locke, the British philosopher, a preeminent British philosopher, who was a slave trader as well. You've got Thomas Jefferson, who was the third president of the United States. But he had Monticello, and he was a slave trader. And as a matter of fact, he wrote some of them very harsh statements with respect to race. I call Locke's slavery Lockean slavery. I refer to Thomas Jefferson's slavery as Jeffersonian slavery. And then you have Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant will write one of the most profound books, Critique of Pure Reason. Okay, but in Immanuel Kant would have some very terrible words for black people. Very, very. As a matter of fact, he is considered one of the major pioneers of what we call white supremacy. And I call his notion of slavery, Kantian slavery, and one that contributes to what I refer to as the cult of white supremacy, Immanuel Kant. And so you have in these books the narrative with respect to what I call the superpowers of the slave trade and how they have continued the legacies of the slave trade into colonialism, into neo-colonialism, and into penal slavery. So who are the members of the superpowers of the slave trade? You've got Portugal, the Portuguese. You've got the Dutch. You've got the Belgians. You've got the folks of the Netherlands. You've got the Germans. You've got the British. You've got the Scots. You've got the Welsh. You've got all of them. You've got the United States, who benefited and referred to black humanity as commodities. And particularly in the United States, black will be referred to as 3/5 of human beings. So here you have the racial consciousness that is associated with the West. Thus, every black person is referred to, whether you come from Jamaica, you come from Haiti, you come from Angola or Zimbabwe, you are black. Thus, black history and the black experience becomes your experience. But to counteract and to deconstruct some of the claims of Thomas Jefferson and John Locke and Immanuel Kant and Hegel and David Hume and Voltaire, who promoted white supremacist ideas, I use Du Bois, W.E.B. Du Bois, and I.W. Wells, and Dr. King as well, and Frederick Douglass. Okay, I use them to deconstruct, particularly Du Bois, who would talk about and refer to black people as black diamonds. Thus, the title of the book is The Rush for Black Diamonds, but for Du Bois, black diamonds, while you would have Locke and Thomas Jefferson referring to black humanity as commodities or economic units, monetary units, Du Bois would highlight the need to refer to black people as black diamonds. For Du Bois, black people have inherent dignity. Inherent dignity. Our human beings are not economic units. Thus, black diamonds would refer to the humanity of black people. Thus, it is very important to understand these dynamics. Okay? So you are, as a black person, a black diamond. A black diamond. Welcome, black diamonds. So, in these two volumes, I make the argument again for the recognition of black humanity, but then absolutely important, and I want to encourage you. You may be a pastor, you may be a theologian, you may be a professor, you may be whoever you are. But may I encourage you to get a copy of these books, or get copies of these books. Again, my name is Dr. Walters, George Walters-Sleyon, and I'm available to come over and speak for you at your church, your class, etc. I'm a professor. I teach Intro to Philosophy, Apply Ethics, etc., etc., But I would be delighted to come over and talk about these books as well. So my website is www.georgewaltersleyon.com, and it'll be a pleasure to hear from you. Again, these books are on Amazon. Thank you very much for listening to me, and thank you.